Excellent. This is success, my friend. Technology working like never before. I'd like to welcome everybody that's tuned in live. This is Jay Bassell. I'm the marketing director for Equipment Zone. And I have a special guest, and he is standing in our Solution Center in New Jersey. It happens to be the one and only, drum roll please, Geoff Baxter. Geoff, how are you?
I think everybody would be happy it's one. I'm good, Jay. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. And for those who don't know, Geoff has recently been added to our all-star team, has an illustrious, bright, strong past, doing many great things for other great companies. But we're so thrilled to have you here, Geoff. You are going to be in charge of all things industrial printing. That's code for big stuff, big time, big printers. And we wanted to make sure that as we introduce you, that we can also kind of talk about those two great printers you're standing next to, the F3070s. What do you think about that so far? So far, so good?
Yeah. Hey, you know what, Jay? This is great equipment. I mean, it's why I came here. And I've known Harry that owns the company for years, but as soon as I saw these machines, I realized these were just something I really wanted to be involved with because I think they're kind of the missing link in our industry right now. So I'm just really excited to be here, and I think being part of this machine is, or the sales and installation of these machines is really a big deal for me. I'm really excited about it.
I knew you were, and I know we've had this discussion before, but you introduced me to a quote about the advancement of technology and how if there's truly a technology that is new and impressive, it's almost comparable to magic. Would you say that's still true with the F3070?
Absolutely. And I think the quote you're referring to is my all-time favorite, which is it's Arthur C. Clarke, who wrote 2001: A Space Odyssey. And it's any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And especially if you go back a few years in this industry, not only DTG, but garment embellishment in general, this stuff's magic. It does things that we would have never imagined. It is, is impactful, I think, probably is what the cell phone is to communications. It's just completely changed our world and how we print t-shirts, what we can print, how we print it, and how it all comes together. So yeah, I think this is as close to magic as we've got at the moment anyway.
And truth be told, Geoff, you could probably have gone anywhere you wanted. So we're thrilled that you've chosen, of course, Equipment Zone and be part of our team, but we're also thrilled because you see the future in a better way than some of us, and having your experience, but also having an ability to look forward. It's one of the things I've appreciated about you as I've gotten to know you. So let's talk about that as we move forward. Let's dive in. I've prepared a few questions. And for those that are watching live and for everybody that's going to see this later, we're also going to refer to some slides. So we'll be going back and forth between live discussion, myself and Geoff. Today's event, we will not be printing live, but we do want to give a quick shout out to, the fact is we have lots of videos where we are printing live or we have printed live. And in an upcoming episode of this is considered part 1. So we're going to have part 2 next week, and we will be printing some t-shirts live. And so that'll be fun. But for today, it's just going to be our discussion. We want to kind of dig into some of the numbers. So we'll save those slides for the end. But if you're okay, Geoff, I want to hit you up with a couple of quick questions. So Geoff, let's dive into these questions. First of all, the thing we want to know most really is about the machine itself. So when we think about the F3070, we're talking about the Epson SureColor F3070 DTG printer. How long has that printer been available, Geoff? Do you have any numbers on that?
Well, I think the machine's been on the market for about a year and a half. It actually started to probably deliver. I'm thinking the first of the year. There are a lot of them out there now. It's a well-proven piece of technology. It's using existing technology, so it's not brand new. It's well tested at this point. But yeah, it's early to the market. It's still, like I said, probably an 18-month range since it came out originally.
Yeah, and to those who are wondering, both of those printers you're standing next to are both F3070 printers, correct?
Absolutely, both of these. What we've done here is we set up a pod, because our theory is that if you take 2 of these machines, we can easily print 50 shirts an hour per machine. One operator can actually run both of these. And so with a fairly minimal investment, we'll talk a little bit more about that, you can have an easy 100 shirts an hour, which is real production. It's not one-off. It's not internet fulfillment. It's not printing the one shirt with the largest fish you've ever caught on it. It's a production pod. So we can literally run things that you might have screen printed far more efficiently and more inexpensively here than you would in other applications. And that's our whole point here, is to set up a production pod and be able to show that to you.
That's excellent. So it sounds a little bit like the point of this was, you're also showing how this is going to redefine apparel print. That's kind of why you're here, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, what I see here a little bit, since DTG really kind of entered the market maybe 20 years ago, the question's always been, well, when is this going to displace screen printing? When is it going to get just, become an integral part of the program? And I don't know that it ever will completely displace screen printing because of just some of the oddities and substrates and ink depositions and things like that. But it can become a mainstream system. But what it took was what I believe are three different important criteria. One is the cost of the capital equipment had to come down to a reasonable price. The speeds of the capital equipment had to come up so that it actually ran in a reasonable fashion. And the cost per print, or the cost of consumables, came down. If you went to a trade show 10 or 15 years ago and you saw a DTG machine, they made beautiful prints. Most of them were based on Epson technology, but they took 7, 8, 9 minutes to print a shirt. Sometimes the ink cost could be as high as $5, $6, $7. So it was a very, very limited business model that supported the ability to print on this equipment, because it was one-offs. It was where you could sell a finished shirt for $20. Because of the time consumption and the cost of consumables. But now we've got a machine that is much faster, so it meets that criteria. It's a much more reasonable price point than what industrial equipment has historically been. And the cost of consumables has come way down. So we can print on one machine 50, 60 shirts an hour, cost of a shirt's under $1. So we're right in that realm where we really have got some tooth to it, and it is a true production piece of equipment as opposed to just a novelty, which I think it's been to some extent in the past.
I love the way you described that and how you explained the cost of the shirt you said was under $1. Were you referring to the specific cost of the ink?
Well, I'm referring to the cost of the ink plus the pretreatment average. And of course, it's going to vary. If it's a little left chest, it might be 20 cents. If it's a lot of white coverage on a full 60 by 20 area, it might be $2. But the average pre-treat finished shirt is under $1. And that's on a dark shirt, beautiful prints, great price, and it is fast enough that it actually is an alternate production technique for embellishing garments that would compete with screen printing in a lot of arenas.
Excellent. Well, I know we're going to get into the numbers specifically for everyone who's kind of chomping at the bit to learn about how much is the printer and some of the feeds, the yields, and the breakdown of the ROI. I can't wait for you to kind of really dig in on that data and get a little nerdy with us. But before we do that, maybe you could talk about who's a good candidate, who would be a prime target for this type of technology.
Well, I think this opens up, some areas to DTG printing that really didn't exist before. When they were slow and the consumables were higher, you could never contract print. I mean, you needed to print your own product line and sell them for a high margin to make any money. This actually, I've talked to people recently who are doing contract printing. They might do a line for a department store or somebody else, and there's still, because of the speed and the lower cost of consumables, there's money for everybody to be made in it. So it opens up a lot of arenas, whether you've got your own product line, whether you're a retail establishment, whether you're currently a screen printer and you want to add DTG. I think it's a great peripheral for any screen print shop now that it's fast enough that it makes sense. And when it comes into that, I can get way off on a tangent here, but it is a much better, when you add a lot of colors, like you might see on this print here with the, where we've got an almost unlimited, might be an 8 or 10 color screen print. What you're going to find is if I have to screen print that, I've got to color separate it. I've got to pay an artist to do that. I've got to make the screens. I've got to set up the press. And during that time the press is sitting there being set up, I'm not only paying someone to set it up, but it is generating no revenue during that period. So there's no revenue produced. So during that downtime, I've got a lot of issues. So what you might find on this, by the time you've done all those things, you've set up, you've torn down, you've created the screens, you've created the artwork, that first print might cost, and probably will cost you, between $400 and $500. On this press, it's $1. Now the 500th print is still $1. There's no amortization of the cost that way. But the point I'm trying to make is that the tipping point where it goes from this into a screen printing arena because of the speed and cost is much higher than a lot of people realize. I'll hear a lot of people will look at it and say, well, you know, anything up to 36 pieces, all DTG print, or anything up to 48 pieces. But that tipping point where you go from cost effectiveness, especially as you add a lot of color into design, could be as high as, you know, 500-600 shirts. I actually talked to a fellow down in Texas the other day that had just printed a print run of 800 identical units. So, you know, it is perfect for the screen printer. It's perfect for retail applications. It's perfect for somebody who's doing their own internet fulfillment or has their own Shopify site where they do their own shirts. So it fits any place that you want to embellish a garment, basically, at this point, I believe.
I love that answer, Geoff. So let's talk a little bit about you, just from the perspective of what you've seen, your experiences, your background, as it relates to this specific printer, the F3070. We know it was built from the ground up. We know it's going to deliver professional quality. It was specifically designed for this type of yield, right? Industrial level speeds, these types of outputs. But to you personally, what's the benefit, or what's the thing, what's the part of this print or printer that really has impressed you the most?
You know, Jay, I'm not sure I have an answer of one specific item. You know, I think if you had to pick one, it's capital investment versus throughput. To get 50 shirts an hour off a machine a year ago probably would have cost you minimally $250,000 and probably closer to $300,000 to $400,000. Now we've got a machine whose list price is under $50,000. It's a lot of money, but everything being relative from an investment versus throughput standpoint, you know, this is a great investment. It's unquestionably the best value proposition in DTG. I just have no question about that. But then if you want to look at it from a technical standpoint, once you've established the fact that it's just a great buy, it's got some really cool technology on it. You know, these heads were designed by Epson. Epson actually makes their own print heads. They were designed specifically for this purpose. So it's not an off-the-shelf print head. It is a print. The entire machine is purpose designed to be a DTG printer. It's very easy to work on. If you ever have to change a print head, which everybody will eventually, I don't care what anybody tells you. I've worked on these machines for years. You know, print heads are a consumable item. So at some point they will fail. Now they're good for a very long time, but for this machine, they're relatively inexpensive and they're very easy to change. I push one button on the control panel, which says head change. The whole carriage moves over to the left-hand side. I open it, I unplug the head, I pull 2 ribbon cables out, I put it back together, and within 5 minutes, I'm back up and running. I didn't have to call in a technician from some other foreign country. I didn't have to pay for their trip. I didn't have to buy a $5,000 print head or maybe 10 $5,000 print heads. So it's very quick and easy to set up and run. I love that part of it. You know, it empowers the end user to make their own decisions and do a lot of their own maintenance. Everything set up is basically on the system, tells you what you need to do when you need to do it. And another thing that I think is just a great feature that I wish everybody did, there's actually 2 things on here. One is there's a system in here that obviously looks for any wrinkles. So if the shirt comes back, it won't allow you to scrub the print head with the t-shirt or the t-shirt with the print head. It stops it, which is kind of unique. There are not, you know, you could spend a boatload of money and not get that feature, which I think is kind of silly. But the other thing it has that I don't think anybody else on the market has is a automatic head height adjustment. So if you go from a thicker shirt to a thinner shirt or a shirt to a sweatshirt, it will automatically adjust. I don't have to crawl under here and adjust the palette, change things. So it's meant for high productivity. And I think, you know, the less human intervention you have to put into it, the more time I can spend actually printing t-shirts. And that's what this is all about. So, you know, the fact that it's easy to work on, the maintenance is very, very simple, even a head change, which is pretty complex on a lot of equipment. And the fact that it does have a lot of great features like the automatic head height adjustment, that just makes it such a smooth operational system on it that I just think it's kind of the missing link. It's just a great piece of equipment.
I love the passion. I love that you couldn't say just one thing. So one of the things that really got me excited was your description of a couple of things. Who's a good candidate for the printer? And then some of your favorite benefits, some of the features that you've seen that have made a huge impact. And I love the fact that you questioned why some of these other printers that are, you know, $250,000, 300,000, 500,000 still don't have some of the features that the Epson has. So that's fun. That's exciting for us, obviously, because we're an exclusive Epson partner. But maybe you could speak now to the quality of the printer, because we are pretty impressed with it, both of us, and our teams, been working with this printer now for months and months. We've had a lot of practice. We've printed a lot of prints. But it's built from the ground up, and it was built with a professional industrial type quality, right? So one of the things that impressed me was this one pass print, and that's new and different from a lot of our F2100 users, F2100 owners. So maybe you could talk just for a minute, not too long, but on this one pass print and how that speed is going to impact our bottom line.
Absolutely. And that is a great feature on this machine as well. I actually almost take it for granted. I've gotten so used to it, but it's funny because I do have a 2100 at home that I use for testing, and it is so different in the way that it approaches the print. But the way this is set up, there are two purpose-produced print heads. One of them just prints white ink. One of them is broken down into CMYK and prints all 4 colors. And they're staggered in the machine so that the way it works is it goes to the back, it starts to print, it lays down the white, and then as it reaches the front of the machine, the second head kicks in and starts to put the colors. So it doesn't print white, go back in, print the color, come out. So it does all of it in a single pass. Now it can be set up to run the other way if there's a reason to do that. But the ability to be able to put the shirt on, send it in, and have it come out finished with both the white pass and the colored pass in one shot makes an enormous difference in the potential for the throughput on the machine. So it's a big part of it too, and that actually should have been my 4th on my list of things that I just love about this machine. And truly,
that's okay. That's okay. I know your list. It's hard for you to just narrow down to one thing. That's one of the exciting parts of the printer.
And you and I have had this conversation before, but I've been in this business a long time. Screen printed for 30 years. I've run a couple. I've designed inkjet printers, both hybrid and regular systems or DTG systems. And the one thing I like about this, if all these years I go, if we could just do this, that would be great. Or if we just had this feature, that would be great. And somebody found my Christmas list, at Epson, and basically just gave me everything I was looking for. So many of the things I'd asked for that I wanted in a finished product. When I got to play with this the first time, I was like, yeah, it's here. It's like they were following me around and picked out what I wanted to add to the machine. So it's really a great piece of equipment, but it's really well thought out, and it's addressed most of the things our customer base wants that I can think of.
Well, I love that. I love the way you have that. It's almost like we're both now taking pride for work we didn't do. But
absolutely.
But you described it so well about everything on your Christmas list and what we should know about that. So it is impressive to think about. The fact is a truth. These are truths that we're sharing with folks, is that Epson is the worldwide leader in inkjet printhead technology, and no one makes a better printhead in our estimation, and nobody makes more of them. So is there anything else we should know about that dual precision core printhead?
No, other than it's for what it is, and it's nice because it isn't a stack of 10 printheads. It's 2 printheads, one for white and one equal sized head for CMYK. So when you replace, you only have to replace one head, or if you had to, you could replace 2 at the very most. They're relatively inexpensive and wildly robust. Epson has always kind of kept their printhead technology to themselves. And in the last, I would say, probably year and a half, they've started to sell their heads as an OEM product out to the marketplace, which has really had a great impact because it's just a wonderful printhead. They're very high quality piezo drop-on-demand printheads. Epson was one of the forerunners in this industry. And I think a great example is if you look at our industry pre-Epson building their own DTG printers, 90% of the machines on the market were companies that used Epson printers and repurposed them to build DTG, because that Epson printhead worked so well for DTG. It's high resolution, it's fast, it's an inexpensive printhead, has great longevity. So, and that was a head that was really designed to print paper. So if you look at the fact that we've got purpose designed heads here, what more could you ask for?
Yeah. I think I was also blown away with how easy it is for people like you and me, the average Joe, not that you're average, but I certainly am the average J, but to be able to replace those print heads. So for people who aren't aware, and we're not going to get into that today, but we just want to, plant that seed, is that it is something that an operator could do. It is something that you could have a second print head on the shelf just in case. And within an hour, is what I've been told, you could easily swap out and replace a print head.
It's something that truly my 12-year-old granddaughter could do. And it's probably a 10-minute process. Literally, it comes to the side. There's even a nice little drawer when you flip the top over that holds your old printhead. You set it there, you put the new one in place, you plug the ribbon cables in, you flip the top over. It doesn't even require a screwdriver. And it was interesting. We were kind of toting this fact on the internet, talking to some people a couple of weeks ago. And one of our competitors, who I will leave nameless, says, "Well, our heads don't wear out." That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. If anybody who's ever been in the inkjet business, please don't tell me you never had to change a printhead. It's part of the business. That's like saying I never changed my spark plugs, or I never changed my air filter in my car.
My tires or something like that.
Yeah, and you know, spark plugs last a lot longer now with electronic ignition systems. Inkjet heads last a lot longer. But they have a finite life. There is an end of life for all components in machinery. And whether you have an Epson head that would cost you $600 to $1,200 depending on your plan, or whether you buy something that might have a Kyocera head that costs $4,000, they're still going to wear out. It's just part of it. They are a consumable. And the first thing I would do is be very cautious of anybody who tells me you never have to replace the printhead. That's just part of the deal. If you've been in this business, you know that.
Well, Geoff, that's one of the reasons we love that you're on our team, is that you're a straight shooter, you're a straight talker, you're not trying to spin things, you're not trying to sell people, you're trying to give them the information so that they can make the best decision possible. And, you know, by saying that it is easily replaceable, we are not, and I emphasize not saying that it's something that's going to happen, you know, in the first 6 months, in the first year. It could be that you could go 5 years. We don't know. And I love the fact that you said, but yet, you know, at some point you will need to replace it. And I just appreciate that Epson, from the engineering side of the street, just made it easier. You know, they just realized if you're down over the weekend and you're cranking out you know, you've got to run. And a lot of us old school, you know, printers, we know what Saturdays look like, right? It's kind of our catch-up day. So you want to be able to, if in a place and in a position to have to replace it, that you can do it yourself. Now, that's the only point I was trying to make. So,
no, you're absolutely right. And it is important to understand that because we make it easy doesn't mean that our head is not absolutely as robust and durable as everybody else's. It just means when it does fail, we're going to make it easy for you.
Yeah,
we're going to save you downtime. We're going to save you cost. You know, instead of being down for days and paying thousands of dollars for a head and somebody to come install it for you, you know, we'll have you back up and running in half an hour and at a very low cost. So it's a good thing, not a bad thing. We're in no reason saying that it's not durable. We're just saying that when it passes, we're ready to help you with it.
Couple of quick questions, little lightning round before we go into the slides and you start to geek out and nerd out with all of this data and the ROI stuff. But just real quick, just so for folks who may be tuned in a little bit later. So can you give us again, one more time, the close estimation of how many full-size graphics, how many full-size, full-color graphics on a Dart garment can this one printer would easily yield? Like, what would it be capable of? What would that output look like?
Well, I think this machine's, I know for a fact, this machine's absolutely capable of doing 50 Dart full-size imprints an hour. Not A4s, not the size of a pocket print. But we actually have a video online. You can go, it's on YouTube under Equipment Zone. And we actually filmed an entire hour of running this machine and printing t-shirts, and we got 50 shirts in exactly 1 hour, in 60 minutes. And I think we can time it, and I'm not going to get into this part, but we're actually working on some things to make it even a little quicker. If you see, I've got a barcode scanner sitting on top of the system right now, and we've got it set up to where we can, rather than you having to go over and load it, we can scan the machine to identify which of your mini machines you want to print onto, scan the shirt, it automatically loads, and you're back up and printing within only a few seconds. So when you've got a pod like this, we're constantly looking at ways to increase the productivity, which makes this all worthwhile for everybody. But I know for a fact we can print 50, and I think probably when we get a couple other features in place, we could push 60 shirts an hour per machine.
No, that's exciting. That's
so if we look at our pod here, we've got 2 machines, initial investment of around $100,000, but the capacity to print 100 to 120 shirts an hour. If you were to look at other machines or a single machine that can do that, you could spend as much as $1 million. So I think this is something that, regardless of what you currently have or where you've been or what your future is, you need to take it into consideration and at least take a look and see what we've got here, because I think this is really important stuff.
I do too. I think it's important. I love the way you phrase that and how you shared that. And we're going to talk about how that impacts customers' bottom line next. But one last quick question. Can because this comes up all the time, can one person really, Geoff, really, like no spin, no sales, can one person really manage 2 of those printers?
Absolutely, Jay. In fact, the best way to see that, watch the video that we've got online. we have one of the gentlemen who works here managed to print 50 shirts in 60 minutes, but was idle probably 60 to 70% of the time.
Yeah.
So running two of these is a cakewalk. And again, not only here in the laboratory, which everything's a little different when you run it in a lab situation, but the gentleman I was talking to in Texas the other day, I was really interested in the way he's running his business. And he was able, he tells me, with one person to get an easy 110 to 120 shirts an hour off his two machine pod. In fact, it's been so successful, he's adding a second 2 machines right now. So very impressive. And that was real life, because that's what he does, is print production and a lot of contract work. So it wasn't just us doing it here under perfect conditions. The real world, the pod should be capable easily of being run by one individual and producing 100+ shirts an hour.
And we would definitely be recommending a conveyor belt dryer to complete that production pod. Obviously, we're not going to talk too much about that. The star of the show today are the 2 printers that are right behind you, but it is not going to be, you're not going to be in a position to get that yield with a heat press.
No, I think you probably have to have 40 heat presses in a row in order to keep up with that. Our efficiency was up here would have just gone to efficiency down here.
You just lost it all.
Yeah, I think it would be like buying a brand new Ferrari and putting a 25-mile-an-hour governor on it. So I think you're much better off to get a belt dryer. It just doesn't make any sense from a productivity standpoint otherwise. But absolutely, you need to run this through. But this thing prints beautifully, dries beautifully through a belt system, and in fact, a fairly compact one. So it is a very attainable goal to be able to do that.
Love that. Well, let me switch into these slides, if you don't mind, for just a minute. And I know you won't really be able to see much, Geoff. I'm not sure if maybe you've got the TV up. Vanessa probably has something that you can see.
If you're going to put the slides up, I think I'm going to walk over to the computer just so I can take a look at them and walk through them, because I don't have enough memory to actually memorize them at this point.
Let's do that now. All right, so thank you everybody for being patient as we got through our little audio snafu, a little challenge there, but we were graceful in our abilities, I think, to overcome that. So again, this is our opportunity to help share information that really, from our side of the street, is going to redefine apparel printing. So screen printers, apparel decorators, embroiderers. We see a lot of interest from other inkjet technology based owners, like people maybe doing wide format signage. This is something that is truly a game changer. I know that cliche gets bandied around a lot, but I've seen this. I've worked with these printers, and seeing the excitement from people like Geoff Baxter, as well as the owner of our company and president, Harry Oster. These are big commitments, and I just want our audience, and I want our future audience to know that we're going all in. I mean, we're not leaving behind anybody that's an F2100 owner. We still love those printers, and we'll continue to forever love those printers. But I want to make the point, this printer is not a replacement of those. This is the evolution. This is just how the technology moves forward, and the commitment that Epson has made to move forward. So let's go through. I'm going to click through a couple of more slides. This is the printer we're talking about, as you can see, both on my screen as well as at the Solution Center. Geoff, if you're ready, I've got a slide up that talks about, more about, we're getting into how the Epson addresses your needs. Can you see that slide, Geoff?
Absolutely. In fact, I've just moved over. I'm in front of the computer. So I just kind of put this together to go through a few high points on it. There's no question. This is a sales presentation. And at the same time, you got to remember with us, our goal is that you are a long-term customer. So I've really just pointed out things here that I think are really important about this equipment. It's more a technical presentation than a sales presentation. But the things that I think are really important here, again, just to rehash a little bit: low capital investment. And I know $50,000 doesn't sound low to some people, but in a relative world where machines cost $250,000 to $500,000 to $750,000, it's a pretty low capital investment to get the same throughput. High productivity. It's designed to print and to produce. It's not for one-offs and internet fulfillment anymore. It's a true industrial level printer. Everything was designed specifically for this purpose. It's not rebuilt out of other things that people had around. It compares to printers costing 5 times the price. I know that for a fact from some of the places I've worked in the past. To get this level of productivity, you'd have to spend easily $250,000. So I think you're going to find that you buy 5 of these, you've got some pretty serious competition for those machines. It dramatically reduces printed inventory. I only bring that up because after the pandemic, I've been dealing with so many retailers who've had to purchase huge amounts of inventory that were distressed in their bricks and mortar stores over the last 18 months. And a lot of it has actually gone by the wayside because, obviously it's a very seasonal retail business. So this allows some of those retailers, and a lot of them are actually buying into this, to produce a little more on demand, smaller quantities, more often, more internet fulfillment. So you can really reduce your inventory. I worked for a printer down in Florida years ago. I ran a large print shop. We did nature graphics. And we had about 400 graphic SKUs in our product line. It was beautiful work. It was all 4-color process screen printing. We built the company up to about $38 million in 1989. And by 1992, they were bankrupt. And a large portion of that bankruptcy was they had about $8 to $10 million in printed inventory, and they just could not produce enough revenue to support the debt burden on that inventory revenue. So it's a great way to and had we had this technology, we wouldn't have had that problem whatsoever. Probably still be in business. It's great for print on demand. It's fast enough to print for inventory, which is a big part of this. And it's a highly sustainable process. That's a very popular buzzword in today's world, especially with some of our competitors. It is water-based. There are no phthalates. There are no PVC resins. Very, very minimal water usage. So it is a very sustainable process. So
that's impressive, Geoff. Just I know what you were saying, and you're being very generous by not naming names. But there are printers that are in the $500,000 range that try to make the claim that they're more sustainable or more eco-friendly, but the reality is that they're not telling the whole story. So we'll save that conversation for another day. I also want to make sure that everyone can still see the slides. Great. Okay, I got some feedback from Richard. Thank you. Just because of the way we've got this set up this morning, it's a little bit different. So appreciate that feedback. And I hope that you can, Geoff, we've continued to talk about how we're dramatically reducing the printed inventory. You just covered that and what true print on demand is. But I don't want to get too far out into the weeds here, but is there anything else we should know about that sustainability, about, is there a feature specific to Epson that you're impressed with?
Jay, I think probably just the fact that the way the inks are manufactured, and the fact that we aren't using any water. It's really interesting, but I did some testing, and you have to realize I'm a screen printer from day one. I decided it would be a great way to make some beer money in 1974, and here I still am. But
still making beer money.
Absolutely, just barely sometimes. But no, but if you think about it, to make a screen, and we did some testing, it takes about 6 gallons of water per screen. So a 10-color setup uses 60 or produces 60 gallons of effluent. And that's pretty standard. And I got that information from a number of the people in the screen making industry as well. So, if you look at this, there's almost zero water involved in the production of a t-shirt. So if you take just the water into consideration, the fact that, again, we're no PVCs, no phthalates, no, almost very low VOC. So it is a very sustainable process. And I think that's, more and more important to a lot of people, both in our industry and in general.
And Geoff, as we're you and your aspirations of a screen printer, I also found the attraction and had a similar need for a little side money, shall we say. And I remember my first job in the screen shop was, of course, you start at the bottom, cleaning screens. And so it's one of the things I love so much about DTG is avoiding all of that cleanup, all of that mess, all of those chemicals, all of that wasted ink, all of that drama and friction that is often unspoken of. It's one of the most horrible positions in most screen printing shops. And, you just don't have that with this DTG process.
It's funny, Jay, because my youngest son actually still has a small screen print shop. And I was helping him out on a project last night. And I was up to my elbows in plastisol after we printed about a dozen shirts. And I was thinking, boy, I wish we could have digitally printed these. So yeah, there's no question. It's just an entirely different world.
Well, thanks for giving us a few of those bullet points on some of the highlights of the needs. And let's get a little bit more specific. I'm gonna click another slide forward, and we're gonna get a little more into the numbers. I know there's been a lot of people that have had a lot of questions about this, but I think it's important that you do this breakdown, and so that people can see if they go forward with this type of a capital investment, what's a realistic return on their investment, on their capital outlay. Whether they're paying cash or whether they're leasing. In this case, you're talking about a lease, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. I thought, so many of our customers do lease, and it's, a lot of times in business, it's by far the best way to go. It's just best use of your assets. So, I put this together. I talked to a couple of leasing companies based on about a $55,000 lease, which includes some of the peripherals. A 5-year lease worked out to about $12.25 a month. If you can print 50 shirts an hour, which is a very attainable goal, with a gross profit of $1.75, which I think is dramatically low. In this business, most people are making a much better profit. But you're at $1.75 per unit, you're looking at $87.50 per an hour you can generate. Not at all an unattainable goal for the for the DTG business. So if you take your $12.25, simply break it down by $87.50, in 14 hours of production, I can pay my monthly payment. So 14 hours at 8 hours a day makes the payment. So you do have to have enough work to keep it busy, obviously. But if you have the work, in less than 2 days, you've made your payment. So the balance of the month, that profit goes in your pocket. And you may say, well, what else is involved here? But that's just on this part of it. But if we can flip to the next slide, I've got you a real ROI on.
Yeah, hold on. I just want to let you know that no, you're fine. You're fine. I just want to let you know, I think I can hear Terry Combs, our coworker and our good friend, all the way from the other side of town. So I'm here at the office in Tempe, and he's on the west side. I'm pretty sure I can hear him screaming at me, $1.75 per shirt. Are you guys crazy? Because he's been telling everybody, and it's the truth, that there is so much more than that in terms of gross profit. So,
and I completely agree. I based this on a company I was working with who was doing low-end contract printing. And they were netting out about $1.75 a shirt. I think that's as low as you could possibly go in this arena. And this space normally would generate 2, 3, 4 times that much profit.
Agreed.
But this is worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario, because we're going to be pushing everybody as your unofficial partner in DTG printing, soon to be official partner in DTG printing. We would be pushing you to see that number as high as $10 per shirt when possible. It's not possible in every scenario, obviously, but we just wanted to make sure that folks aren't like, what? That's all the profit I'm going to make? Yeah, no, much more than that.
No, absolutely. And Terry's right. And don't hit me next time you see me, Terry, please.
No. Terry just chatted out. He's like, $1.75 per shirt. What? So that was my indicator. Those are my same sentiments. Now I will gladly go to the next slide forward, because we have much more to talk about in terms of return on investment.
So what I put together here was just, you've got an extra $55,000 sitting in your bank account. You want to go pay for this machine. So I ran it based upon the actual cost of the equipment. And I based it on a capital expenditure of $57,984.60, which is the machine, shipping, installation, some peripheral supplies, everything you need to start the package. So using that same $1.75 again, which is a dramatically ridiculous number, but I want to be as honest as possible. And again, that is worst case scenario. I love it. So you take it, it generates an 8-hour day will generate about $700 per day. Okay, and that's working in an 8-hour day times 21 days, which is the normal work month for most people. You're generating $14,700 in gross profit per month, and that's 57. You've got a 57,984 capital expenditure. You break that down 3.95 months, or under 4 months. You've made enough money to completely pay off your capital expenditure, your capital investment, and now you're putting that money in your pocket or using it for other things. And this is not just basic numbers. I factored in lots of other things. And if you want to go to the next slide, I won't make you sit through the bullet points, but I just want you to be aware that I did factor in real estate and all the other things, employees and things like that have to come into play.
No, that makes a ton of sense. I think it's a great start for people who are looking at this as in terms of investment, as all business owners should. Having these numbers and trying to factor this in. This is the justification that we need. These are the numbers that we're going to want in a business plan, or as we sit down with our CPA or our financial planner or our spouse or whoever, right, is to figure this out. So let me move forward one more slide so that you can give us a little bit more and clear up some of these other assumptions that you've made in this analysis.
Yep, and again, I won't bore you with this, but I based it on 50 shirts an hour, based upon a 21-hour or 21-day 8-hour shift per month. Average cost of shirt at $2. Average cost of ink and pretreatment at 90 cents. Estimated floor space at about 0.9. I've actually got a separate slide where we can work that out. And of course, you know, if you're in downtown Manhattan, it's going to be very different than if you're in a small town in Indiana. You know, but one nice thing is we would be more than happy to help you if you have questions, put together your ROI based on your situation. Estimated labor at about 26 cents per unit. And again, I think I based that on $13 or $14 per hour for a standard employee. Average selling price of the shirt, very conservative, $5. Gross profit, $1.75. And that's how I came to those numbers. So,
Gotcha.
you know, I tried to factor in, everything's not factored in. I didn't do the electrical, but it factors in a great deal of what's involved in this. It's not just the shirt and the machine and the ink. So
obviously though, thank you, Geoff, because these variables are just that. And it's going to be a different situation for each potential owner, current owner, et cetera. They may have longer hours, they may have fewer days, they may have different cost of shirt. So, but this is a great formula. And I think this provides a baseline of a recipe, if you would, I think formula is probably the better word. And just so that people know that this is where Geoff Baxter lives. This is your domain, brother. This is like, you own this data, you think about this data, you helped huge shops get off the ground and have this type of outlay. You know, and it's important that whether you're a brand new small business owner or whether you're a huge retail company, that you can look at these numbers and conservatively get your arms around them and truth be told, understand them. And I think our good friend Mark Coudray would be proud of us.
we're not even halfway to Mark's.
I know we're not, but at least we're talking, at least we're on the subject, right? At least we're talking slightly about it. Okay, did I have one more slide? I'm trying to think.
There is one more just to kind of go through the additional. Labor needed per printer, one person at $13 each per hour. So you're looking at about $13 for 50 shirts. You can still be at $13 and get 100 shirts if you have a second machine. Floor space required, I calculated that at about 150 square feet at $5 per square feet. So $750 per month. And so it, you know, basically we tried to do labor and at least the real estate into this assumption so that it wasn't just the basics, because that's kind of misleading. So we want to make sure we put as much in. And again, every place is going to be different as far as your labor cost and your real estate cost. And we are more than happy to help you assemble your own ROI so that you can look at what your investment and your return is on that investment. It could be much faster, could be a little slower, but it's still ridiculously quick based on the quality and the output of this equipment.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love the fact that you are available. Our team is available to be able to run through these numbers in those specific situations and help folks figure it out for themselves if they need and want that help. So you can trust in Geoff. He's thought a lot about this. He's put all of this together today. And that's really what the heart of this session was, to figure out and to give some evidence so that whether it's myself, clearly I am not the master of all of those facts and figures, but Geoff Baxter is, and we have others that can help. So whether that's Terry or Amy or you, Geoff, or Harry or the rest of the crew, this has been the great start for us as a company. We are seeing more and more of our customers that are F2100 owners. They're opening up to, wow, this could really make a lot of sense for my business as they go through some growth. Some people start here with 1 or 2 units. We have other customers that are looking at much bigger purchases. So no matter where people are on the spectrum, Geoff, what would you like people to walk away with? Was there any closing thoughts that you think were really going to help folks with kind of getting started with the F3070?
You know, I think the main thing, Jay, is that just, you know, you need to see it, you need to play with it, you need to run some prints on it, and don't pay attention to, in any business, in any part of this business, don't pay attention to what the other manufacturers say about our equipment. We're not going to tell you anything about their equipment, but see it for yourself, make your own decisions based on what you see, the quality, the throughput, the cost factors. And I think you'll find very quickly that this is unquestionably, you know, the best value proposition in the market today. I don't think there's anybody even close that can run what this runs at this price point.
Yeah, powerful. It's good stuff. Well, we've got a couple of more things to close with, but I appreciate again everybody that tuned in, and for those viewers who are going to watch this on YouTube down the road, One of the things I want you to know is that you could set up a virtual tour. We have the technology and the cameras to be able to, you could send in a print and talk to Geoff, talk to our team, set up a time, and virtually watch the process, okay, with your own artwork. Or if you're in the tri-state area and you want to be able to set up an appointment, please do that. You could coordinate with our team in New Jersey, set up a time, so where you could also come in person. We have all the safety protocols in place. We just want to make sure that we can set up the appointment ahead of time. It's a lot better if you don't just surprise us and pop in. We'll try to accommodate you if you do that, but I'm giving everyone the heads up. We would prefer greatly if you could give us a little bit of a heads up and coordinate that and set up an appointment with Geoff and the team there in New Jersey. So having said all that, Geoff, I've got a couple more things I just want to share as we wrap up. We did share the final slide here, but we also have our YouTube channel to promote, because we always do at the end of our sessions. Geoff, you will now be one of our great contributors. And we're grateful for your time today. But for those of you watching, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, because you'll get a notification. Sometimes we are recording things that aren't live, and we'll add them into the YouTube stream on our Epson channel. Or, I'm sorry, on our Equipment Zone channel, and you'll be able to see, you'll get that subscription notification. You'll be a little bell, bing, guess what? Equipment Zone just dropped another, some more gold, some more nuggets, some more wisdom. So a subscriber would be great. If you don't want to subscribe, we don't really do anything there. We're not harvesting any info. Maybe YouTube is, I don't know, but all we're doing is trying to make it easy for you to get the information and the knowledge that you need. And then of course, key contact info. This is how you get in touch with us. So please do that. We have an 800 number that you can see on the screen. You can speak to Geoff himself, hit him up via email, Terry or Amy. And that's really the end of the show, Geoff. There's nothing more to say. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just so that we can check quickly. We are going to discuss a little bit in deeper detail in the future about the warranties that came up in our chat. So thank you for those of you who asked. Also, for those of you who were thinking about, I'm scrolling right now, the numbers that you were speaking about, Geoff. One of the things, just for clarity's sake, as we wrap up, those would have been to achieve those numbers and the yields and the output that you were giving. Those t-shirts would have already been pre-treated, correct? We were not factoring in the time of pre-treatment.
No, absolutely. And I never want to be misleading, because some people forget to tell you there's pre-treatment to do. And it is offline workflow. It's something you're going to do, but it's just workflow. You build it into the system. There are a number of ways to do it. And it can be done in a fashion that, very, very little labor cost. And we're always working on better and faster ways to add that. But you're right. The labor to do the pre-treatment was not factored into any of my discussion today.
Yeah, and it was a great question, by the way. So we thank you for the question, Rick, and those of you who have sent me some texts along the way. We have more data. Please reach out to Geoff. He's got all of this information. It's not just something on a PowerPoint. He walks it, lives it, breathes it. And by the way, for those of you who we were lucky enough to have a major apparel manufacturer in our solution center yesterday, who was highly impressed with our abilities with our solution center. And they are one of the pioneers and leaders in apparel and garments that have already been pre-treated. So I'm not going to name drop, it's not important, but it reminded me that the apparel companies are also looking at DTG through the long-term lens of a big impact for apparel decorators. And they are all hustling to figure out better ways to produce garments that have already been pre-treated. So there's that future and a lot more to come. So we can't wait for part 2 of this session, Geoff Baxter. Is there anything else before we say goodbye and start waving?
No, just thank everybody for coming in. I had a great time today. It was fun to get to share this with everyone.
Well, Geoff, we appreciate you. We can tell that your knowledge is deep and you well thought. For anybody who is still waiting for more information, part 2 is going to cover it a lot. So thank you again. And we will say goodbye for now. And that's all we've got. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.